Hello my friends, my name is Kale, and welcome to part 3 of making your Vault Hunters from comments. There are some really interesting ideas today. You guys are so creative and I love your ideas so much. In the last video, I got a ton of comments and I'm trying to include everyone best I can. This first Vault Hunter comes from a user known as Dr. Blue Gun. This Vault Hunter's name is Dante Trant, the disillusioned maliwan soldier. Dante Trant is one of the infamous Trant brothers, a former maliwan soldier who was never high-ranking enough to become a heavy, like his brothers Samuel or Daniel. After the death of Katagawa Jr. and the deaths of his two high-ranking brothers due to the actions of the Vault Hunters, Trant abandoned Maliwan. He left with some experimental trooper technology and harbors a deep grudge against the previous Vault Hunters for the losses he has suffered. His action skill is called Deployable Drone, a walking drone that provides support, creating cover and shooting elemental projectiles at enemies. This drone is unique because we've only really ever seen flying drones. His first skill tree, Flash Runner. This tree focuses on mobility, boosting movement speed, enhancing damage when dashing into enemies, and applying elemental auras during movement-based actions. Example skills: Quick Step, increases sprint speed and slide distance by 10% per point. At max level, sliding leaves a trail of elemental fire damaging enemies behind you. Elemental Smash. Dashing into an enemy triggers an explosion of your equipped elemental type. Dealing area of effect damage. Damage increases with movement speed. Trailblazer. While sprinting or sliding, gain increased elemental resistance by 8% per point. At max level, dashing into an enemy spreads the elemental aura to nearby enemies. This tree's capstone ability is called Binding Dash. Dashing into an enemy triggers an enormous elemental explosion, dealing massive damage and applying elemental status effects to all enemies in a radius. Skill Tree 2. Elements Bearer, Wielder of Elements. This tree revolves around elemental weapon damage, increasing status effect chances, duration, and overall elemental effectiveness. It also enhances the damage output of Trant's drone. The capstone allows Trant to apply bonus elemental damage that differs from his weapon's base element. This tree's skills: Elemental Surge, increases the chance to apply elemental effects by 5% per point. At max level, any enemy affected by elemental status has a chance to spread that status to others. Overload, increases gun elemental damage by 3% per point. At max level, when an enemy dies from elemental damage, they explode in a burst of that element. Resonance, enemies under the effect of elemental statuses take 5% increased damage from all sources per point. Max level also reduces the resistance to all elements. This tree's capstone, Elements Bearer, Doll Infusion. Trant gains the ability to apply a second elemental effect to his weapon. If the weapon already has two elements, both elements now deal increased damage and apply longer lasting status effects. His third skill tree, Technological Protection. This tree emphasizes shields and barriers, boosting a shield capacity, recharge rates, and adding vampiric effects. It also increases the effectiveness of drone's shields. Example skills: Vanguard Shield, increases shield capacity by 7% per point. At max level, your shields regenerate faster when you're moving. Barrier Protocol, drone deploys a protective barrier that absorbs incoming damage. Barrier strength increases with shield capacity. Shield Vampirism, a portion of damage dealt while shields are full is converted into your shield regeneration. At max level, killing an enemy instantly restores 20% of your shield. This tree's capstone ability, Technological Protection, Aegis Overload. When shields are fully charged, Trant and his drone gain a large damage reduction, and all incoming damage is partially reflected back at the attackers. This next individual created not one, not two, but 6 distinct Vault Hunters. This group is called the Voyagers, and they function as one single Vault Hunter, allowing players to switch between the 6 members: Wesley, Caroline, Mikey, Netriska, Whitley, and Ilya? Let's say Ilya. Each character has their own dedicated skill tree, or section of skill tree if we're limited to 3. Quote, "The Voyagers are basically the guardians of the galaxy of the Borderlands universe, with a bit of a garage band vibe. It is noted that they all have matching uniforms, but good luck trying to get AI to do that, so just pretend they do." I honestly think that these character concepts would do better in their own game entirely. Wesley Theodore, the leader. Raised on Gienna, obsessed with Vault Hunters and fascinated by music, Wesley left his hometown with 2 stolen hand cannons, determined to become a hero like those he looked up to. This character skill tree focuses on dual pistol and kill skills. Caroline Theodore, the Chaos Engineer, a genius inventor from Remnant, who created a sentient mech named Mikey. Shunned for her dangerous creations, she left her home to prove herself in the galaxy. This character's skills focuses on explosive and grenade modification. Mikey Theodore, the Mechlomaniac. This character is Caroline's giant mech and loyal protector. Once a pet turtle, Mikey now has a robotic body and remains fiercely protective of Caroline while being blunt and surprisingly friendly. This character's skill tree would focus on melee and defensive ability. Netriska Merlot, the Mind Sploder, a blue-skinned alien girl with telekinetic powers from another universe. Raised by the scientist who found her, she now explores the galaxy with a hopeful and innocent spirit. She amplifies telekinetic powers for better crowd control and elemental effects, and marking targets with a debuff to take additional damage. AI really didn't want to give her modest clothing, and even temporarily banned me when I asked for less revealing clothing for violating terms and conditions, which is interesting. Thank you, AI. Whitley Toombs, the Elementizer. Son of a high-ranking maliwan exec, Whitley was sold to Maliwan R&D and experimented on with all 6 elements. He escaped, swearing vengeance on Maliwan for what they did to him. Whitley maximizes elemental damage, status effects, and elemental switching in his skill tree. Ilya Imota, the Shadow, a half-human, half-chameleon hybrid and former terrorist operative. After realizing her organization's wrongdoings, she left her old life and now seeks peace for a troubled past. Ilya specializes in stealth, invisibility, and quick assassinations. This next Vault Hunter comes from a returning user, Ahmet0. This Vault Hunter's name is Raver, the Dark Guardian. Raver was once a guardian tasked with defending the Iridian Vaults, his life dedicated to preserving their secrets. Over centuries, the endless cycles of violence and chaos in the galaxy left him disillusioned. When a strange group of Vault Hunters destroyed the vault he was guarding, Raver was freed from his purpose, but became corrupted by the lingering energy of the vault. This corruption gave him new abilities, allowing him to manipulate space and energy. Now he roams the galaxy as a chaotic force, searching for balance between destruction and control. 2 concepts I have for his action skills. Black Hole. Raver creates a vortex that absorbs incoming projectiles. After absorbing a certain amount of damage, he can unleash it in a powerful explosion, dealing massive damage based on the amount absorbed. His second action skill is called Link. Raver tethers up to 3 enemies together with an energy link. Any damage dealt to the one enemy is shared equally between all linked enemies, making it easier to eliminate groups. His first skill tree, Voidbringer. Focus with absorption and energy manipulation. This tree enhances Raver's ability to absorb damage and retaliate with increased power. The more damage Raver absorbs, the more devastating his counterattacks become. This tree's skills? Vortex Shield. Absorbs 10% more damage from projectiles and converts it to shield regeneration. Overload. For every 100 points of damage, or we can go for a percentage, Raver gains a 5% boost to weapon damage for 10 seconds. Singularity. Enemies caught in the blast of Black Hole are temporarily stunned for 3 seconds. This skill tree's capstone ability, Void Overflow. When Black Hole is triggered, it pulls in nearby enemies, dealing explosive damage to all enemies caught within the vortex, even if they weren't targeting Raver. His second skill tree, Tethered Fury. Focus on linking and shared damage. This tree focuses on linking enemies together, amplifying the damage shared between them. It also includes skills that enhance crowd control and increase the effectiveness of tethered links. His sample skills, Energy Feedback. Damage dealt to enemies regenerates Raver shields by 2% per hit. Chain Reaction. Linked enemies take an additional 10% damage from critical hits. Conduit. While enemies are linked, Raver's movement speed is increased by 15%. This capstone ability, Mass Connection. Link can now tether up to 5 enemies at once, and the damage shared between them is increased by 20%. His third skill tree, Event Horizon. This tree grants Raver more control over the battlefield, manipulating space and gravity to affect enemies in unique ways. It boosts his utility and crowd control. His sample skills, Gravitation Pulse. Raver's melee attacks creates a shockwave, pulling in nearby enemies closer. Event Shift. Dodging causes a small gravitational burst, knocking back nearby enemies and giving Raver temporarily invulnerability. Distortion Field. Enemies within a certain radius have their movement speed reduced by 10%. Raver gains the ability to create a gravitational rift. When Black Hole is used, this rift continuously attracts the attention of enemies. Any shots fired at the Black Hole will apply damage to the attacker instead. This next Vault Hunter comes from a user known as Mad Queen Brilly. This Vault Hunter's name is Onex. Onex was once a secret experiment conducted by Hyperion during the events of Borderlands 2. Using a mix of unethical scientific minds, iridium, and digistruct technology, Hyperion sought to create a super soldier with an unnatural connection to guns and firepower. The process warped Onex's mind, infusing him with iridium and blending their consciousness with numerous unstable minds. Onex was left obsessed with guns and destruction, barely containing the madness within. Escaping Hyperion Labs, Onex now wanders the galaxy as a chaotic force, using their abilities to summon an arsenal of floating guns to wreak havoc on the battlefield. His action skill is called Gun God. Onex can summon floating guns, starting with 3, that shoot when Onex shoots their own weapon. Each gun fires in sync, creating a devastating barrage of bullets. The action skill has no time limit and ends when all the clips of all the summoned guns are emptied. As player invests points into the skill trees, they can unlock more guns and enhance their firepower. First skill tree, Locked and Loaded. This tree focuses on boosting the power and efficiency of Onex's summoned guns. Players can improve ammo capacity, increase damage, and even regenerate ammo for both Onex and their summoned guns. Here's some sample skills. Overfill. Each summoned gun has its ammo capacity increased by 10% per point. Recycle. Whenever Onex is hit by an enemy projectile, there's a 10% chance that the summoned gun will regenerate ammo. Ammo Rain. Killing an enemy refills a portion of the ammo for all active summoned guns. His capstone ability is called Infinite Barrage. Summoned guns can fire indefinitely as long as they are hitting enemies. Ammo is only depleted when they miss or fail to hit a target for 3 seconds. His second skill tree, just called Guns. This tree enhances Onex's own shooting ability and focuses on unique gameplay mechanics for guns, from bullet deflection to creative melee overrides. His sample skills, Deflect. Bullets fired by Onex can deflect enemy bullets mid-air, sending them flying back towards the enemy. Surprise, a melee override that causes Onex to pull out a single-shot shotgun and fire it at point-blank range, dealing massive damage. Ricochet. Bullets fired by Onex's guns can ricochet off walls and hit nearby enemies, much like Gage in Borderlands 2. This skill tree's capstone ability, Chaos Bulletstorm. When activated, all bullets fired by Onex and their summoned guns have a 50% chance to ricochet to a second target. Ricocheted bullets deal 75% damage to the new target. His third skill tree, Slinger. This tree emphasizes creating and improving drone-like guns that assist Onex in battle. These guns behave autonomously, targeting enemies and offering support. Here's his sample skills. Auto Assist. Spawns a drone-like gun that hovers around Onex and shoots at enemies automatically. Sentry Mode. Summoned guns can switch to stationary sentries that lock down areas, increasing their fire rate and accuracy while stationary. Ammo Beacon. Summoned drones periodically drop ammo for Onex and his allies. This skill tree's capstone ability, Army of Guns, unlocks the ability to summon 2 additional drone-like guns. These drones gain a 25% boost to fire rate and damage for each active drone. Our next Vault Hunter comes from a user known as Javets. Zenith, the cryo siren. The cryo siren, known as Zenith, was born on a frozen planet where time itself seemed to warp and twist. Her powers manifested during chaotic battle between the warring factions, when she found herself suddenly able to slow time and freeze her enemies. Drawn to the mysteries of the universe and the strange influence of time on her abilities, she left her homeworld in search of ancient Iridian technology, hoping to understand her unique powers. Zenith discovered an ancient vault that granted her mastery over time and cryo elements, but at the cost of feeling detached from normal time. Now she fights with the ability to bend both time and cold, making her a devastating force in battle. So with this character's skill tree, I have 3 different action skills. Her first skill tree is called Frozen Time. Her action skill in this tree is called Time Loop. Zenith creates a time loop for 10 to 15 seconds, allowing her to reload, heal, pick up ammo, while temporarily unaffected by damage. After the loop ends, she returns to the spot where she activated it, retaining the same health and ammo she had before, but any actions taken during the loop, such as damage dealt to enemies, remain permanent. Here are some sample skills. Quick Draw increases weapon swap speed by 10% per point. At max level, swapping weapons briefly increases fire rate. Bullet Reduction. For each ability, including action skill on cooldown, Zenith gains a 5% chance to reflect incoming bullets back at enemies. Last Stand. During the final 5 seconds of time loop, Zenith regenerates 5% of her max health per second. Her capstone ability, Infinite Cycles. After the time loop ends, Zenith gains a stacking damage bonus for each enemy she damaged during the loop. The bonus lasts 15 seconds and resets after each new loop. Her second skill tree, Frostbite Frenzy. Her action skill, Bullet Time. Slows down all enemies and effects in a large radius for 10 to 15 seconds. Zenith moves at normal speed, making it easy to land critical hits and outmaneuver enemies. However, she takes double damage while in this state. Her sample skills, Icy Slide. Sliding leaves an icy trail behind Zenith, damaging enemies that touch it and increasing her speed by 10%. Critical Chill. Critical hits during bullet time deal an additional 20% cryo damage. Shattering Strike. Zenith gains a melee override, where each hit builds up 1 stack of ice, up to 3. At full stacks, her next melee strike shatters all ice, dealing bonus cryo damage. Her capstone ability, Frozen Reflexes. While bullet time is active, critical hits reduce the cooldown of her action skill by 2 seconds and grants 3% lifesteal. This allows her to rapidly gain health while dishing out critical damage. Her third tree, Comet Crash. Action skill, Frozen Comet. Summons a massive frozen comet that crashes down on an enemy Zenith is targeting, dealing huge amounts of cryo damage to them and nearby enemies. Here are her sample skills. Frost Nova. Whenever Zenith's shields are broken, a Cryo Nova explodes, dealing damage to all nearby enemies. Glacier Walls. Using a Ground Slam ability, creates ice walls around Zenith, blocking enemy projectiles and slowing enemies within range. Cryo Buildup. For every 20% of her shield depleted, Zenith gains a 5% damage boost for all cryo attacks. Her capstone ability, Ice Fortress. Zenith's shield is divided into 5 blocks, each representing 20% of the total shield. Any attack can only break 1 block of her shield at a time, greatly reducing the damage she takes from individual hits. Each time a block is broken, it triggers a Cryo Nova that damages and freezes nearby enemies. Our last and final Vault Hunter comes from a user known as Fee. This Vault Hunter's name is Sir Arthur, the Junkloader Paladin. Built during the height of Hyperion's reign, Sir Arthur, formerly Unit 43THEE3R, was one of many junk loaders meant for scrap. However, a malfunction in his code caused him to develop a sense of self-awareness. His corrupted programming, combined with an influx of nightly themes from old human data archives, transformed him into something unexpected. A noble knight in a loader's body, seeking redemption for the atrocities that his kind committed under Hyperion. Abandoning his base directives, he now roams the galaxy as a robotic paladin, swearing to defend the weak, avenge wrongs, and prove his worth as a hero despite the fact that he's a machine of war. Sir Arthur's action skill is called Digistruction, where he uses discarded parts from other loaders to enhance himself, creating a slow-moving juggernaut that deals massive damage and gains immense resistance. While his movement is reduced to a slow walk, he can perform a rocket jump to reposition and re-engage enemies. His action skill gains various upgrades depending on the chosen skill tree, inspired by different types of loaders. This tree emphasizes pure firepower, drawing strength from old war loaders. When activating Digistruction, Sir Arthur equips large guns mounted on his shoulders and sides, dealing massive damage to enemies around him. This tree is all about dealing as much damage as possible and overwhelming enemies with sheer firepower. Here are his sample skills. Sidearm Destruction. Adds 2 large cannons to Sir Arthur's sides, firing explosive rounds while Digistruction is active. Bullet Rain. Increases fire rate and gun damage by 5% for every 10 seconds that Digistruction is active. Shrapnel Swarm. Enemies hit by Sir Arthur's weapon explode into shrapnel, dealing damage to nearby foes. While Digistruction is active, Sir Arthur can activate an extra set of mounted autocannons that rain heavy fire on enemies in front of him. These cannons deal bonus splash damage and can be used to devastate large groups of enemies. His second skill tree, Rapture. This tree focuses on elemental damage and team support, drawing inspiration from angelic guards and elemental loaders. During Digistruction, Sir Arthur summons small support drones that heal allies or buff their elemental damage. He also gains access to elemental abilities such as Angelic Guard's Laser Melee Override. Here are his sample skills. Laser Smite. Replaces melee with Angelic Guard's signature laser attack, dealing elemental damage to enemies. Support Veron Swarm. Summon 3 small floating drones that either heal nearby allies or increase their elemental damage by 10%. Elemental Cleansing. Enemies hit by elemental damage take 15% more damage from all sources for 5 seconds. Capstone ability, Holy Fury. While Digistruction is active, Sir Arthur gains a powerful area of effect attack, where he slams the ground releasing a burst of elemental energy that affects enemies in a large radius, dealing bonus elemental damage and healing teammates within the blast zone. His third and final skill tree, Attrition. This tree focuses on defense, making Sir Arthur a tanky frontline defender capable of taking intense damage. It draws inspiration from the power and bull loaders, granting a powerful shield and abilities that draw enemy fire. During Digistruction, Sir Arthur can activate a massive energy shield to protect himself and allies. His attacks can knock back enemies as well. His first skill, Energy Shield. During Digistruction, Sir Arthur gains a large energy shield in front of him that absorbs incoming damage and protects teammates. Bull Charge. Sir Arthur gains a charge ability that knocks back enemies and deals damage based on how fast he is moving when the charge connects. Damage Sponge. Increases Sir Arthur's damage resistance by 10% and reflects 5% of incoming damage back to enemies. His capstone ability is called Fortress Mode. While Digistruction is active, Sir Arthur's shield becomes indestructible for a limited time. During this period, Sir Arthur absorbs all damage taken by nearby allies and reflects 25% of the damage back to enemies. Anyways, my friends, that's going to do it for this one. I'm having so much fun reading all your creative ideas and then kind of expanding upon them a little bit. Please, like I said in the last one, leave your comments down below, give me some character concepts, and then, hey, if I get enough of them, I'll make another one of these. Because, oh my god, do I enjoy it. But, with that, like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you gotta do. I don't really care. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye, friends.